My name is Oleg. I'm the founder of Extrovert. And today we are having Vincent, and I'm super excited to welcome him because we will be having a hot topic today, which is AI first solo founder playbook. Because seems like everyone can do a lot of stuff with AI right now. We founders, we can do it, but AI can help you ship a lot very fast. But can it help you get users? Can it help you get customers? And what are the pitfalls? What are the ugly truth? What is the actual playbook? And I am super excited about today's session because Vincent, he actually lived this playbook. He actually started several companies, AI first native companies within the last 12 months. And he's actually running correct me if I'm wrong, it's a venture studio, like AI first venture studio or not. So before we begin, just a technical ask from my side. We want to make this session interactive, so please do ask questions. Please share your opinions in the chat. If you can hear us well, if you can see us well, please drop a plus in the chat so that we can see that everything is working. And also would love to hear what you guys are building and what stage you're in. Like, are you a solo founder? Do you have a team, established product, early stage, several products at once? So just let us know so that we can adjust. We will have two parts. The Vincent part first, and I will also have my view on this, on nurturing and on getting the customers. And we will have the Q&A in the end. But do share your questions, and we will address them as they come as well. Cool, Vincent. Thanks a lot for coming. Excited to have you. Please tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Good. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Oleg. I think, sure, some people will still drip in, but I'm just going to start talking. Let me also get my slides on the screen.
Yeah, people will be joining, and no worries. It's always some people are a little bit late, but we'll be sharing the recording, so good. You'll get the slides, you'll get the video as well. So don't hesitate to ask questions and drop your opinions in the chat.
Let me know if you see my slides, but I think it's not expected. It's loading. Can you see a slide or no?
Yeah, it's loading. Yeah, now I can see it.
Okay, good. So what I want to talk to you about today, and I'll give a bit of background on myself in a second, but I want to share with you the findings, the learnings from like the last, it's now been 14, 15 months of like trying to build companies AI first, kind of without hiring a team. How far can I get with like leveraging AI to build, to grow, to manage the business? And these are pretty much, it's just a point in time that I'm giving you. This is continuously evolving. 3 months ago, this looked different than it looks today, and it will look again different 2-3 months from now. So I'll highlight also the things that changed that I learned along the way, but don't take this as like, this is what works or this is what doesn't. Like, I think it's more meant as a kind of like what you pay attention to and which things actually matter and which things are a distraction. So that's what we'll go through today. I see the animation got a bit messed up here, so let me just put everything on the screen. Briefly about myself. So I've been a founder for most of the past 18 years, running software companies of different kinds. Much of that in the go-to-market software space. And I've spent a few years even as a product leader at 2 software companies as well. So you see Dealfront and ZoomInfo there. So those are all companies that serve sales and marketing teams. And I was, for example, at Dealfront, I was CPO until May of last year, which is exactly when I started the current phase. Nowadays, I spend my time under, studio is probably the best word, Oleg. It's like a venture studio where I build AI first companies. but this studio has no funding and no other employees than myself. So this is basically just the umbrella name to kind of say what all this falls under. I'll talk more about the exact products we developed on the next slide, just so you know, like that's what that refers to. And next to that, I also organize a lot of events. So while I try to build companies without people, I do like to also meet with people. And that's like the other side of the spectrum almost. So I organize retreats for founders with SaaS on the beach. I have a space in Barcelona where we do trainings, workshops, and so on around AI. And we're starting to do more other retreats through Inner Circle, which you see on the right there. So that's a little bit about me. I mainly just like to build stuff, and let's talk about the digital products today. In the past 12 or 14 months, there have been 4 main products that came out of these efforts. The first 2 were built before December of last year, and we'll get into why that matters. And the other 2 were built during this year. It has to do with the types of models that were available at the time and how easy or hard it was to build things. So just to walk through each of them briefly as a quick intro, and then we'll talk about some details later. Meetbot is a scheduling solution. So it's like a Calendly, but for AI agents, so that your agent can say, hey, I'm available tomorrow at 2 p.m. instead of here's my scheduling, for example. So it's a pretty specific use case.
Sorry to interrupt you. It's
Yeah.
actually, I actually was thinking about it like 10 minutes before the talk because I'm now doing like most of my work through Hermes Agent. And it is super annoying when anyone sends me the Calendly link and I'm telling to my agent, like, just go and schedule the call. And it's always like saying, oh, there is a capture in there. It blocked my, I couldn't do it. You just need to do it manually. So it's long overdue. I think it should be done for sure.
Well, start using it. It's free. So
Cool.
give it a try and let me know. So the second company is Data Merge. So this is company and contact data for sales teams. So that's a space I spent years in, and this is a specific approach to that I thought had merit. And then the other 2 are more like truly not just built with AI, but also AI products, right? So Scopy is an AI assistant for solopreneurs. This is going in heavily into the direction of like an agent that can run for you at all times, but has native integrations with the right types of solutions. And then Faro is kind of like the actual tools and data that AI agents need. So I mean, when you connect the API from, well, you're using Hermes, but that's already a whole layer of intelligence, harness, and applications on top. Normally, if you connect to the Anthropic API or to the ChatGPT API, and you say, can you look this up on this website? It's like, yeah, I can do that. It's like, well, that's like the most basic tool I expect you to have. Web search. It's like, so web search is something it has, but it has a ton of other stuff that is much more specific. A lot of things that agents just cannot do, including a calculator, for example. Agents also don't have. They just guess, right? So it's very specific and technical product, but it was one of those things I ran into as I was building. I was like, okay, every time I have this problem, others might have it as well. So I already gave you the answer to why the 3 dots on the right, what they actually become, because I'm doing this with one person. This is all me building these. I had the advantage that I was already quite technical before, and that helped a lot with Meetbot and Data Merge. That's helping somewhat with Scopy and Faro, which are actually more technical products, but the AI just got so much better that I don't need to be that technical. Now, what can AI do and what can it not do? So I would say this graph by now is slightly outdated, but the message still remains the same. So user experience, AI can build for you very well. It can create a great user experience. And if you tell it what you want to change, it'll change that for you and it'll work. That's just, it's done, that topic, like front-end experience. Infrastructure, it got a lot better at it. So you used to really need to know what to ask it to make sure that it built the application the right way, so it would be scalable, so it would be safe. It got a lot better at that. I would say maybe 75% at this point. You still need to ask it the right questions, but at this point, if you would just tell it, hey, it's slow, then it would come up with suggestions to improve that. So you can already get there by observation without knowing what needs to happen in the background. That's pretty good. So technical topics, pretty good. Business model, meh, right? So what am I selling? What should I charge for it? how do people find me, like those kinds of questions, you just have to think about what this technology is, right? It's meant to predict the most likely token. That's what LLMs do. So it means that it's going to give you the most likely, the most average business strategy. And business strategy is actually about figuring out what you're really good at and the things that you don't do, right? So that's not going to give you an edge. Now you can get it, of course, to work through something and to develop something for you, but I've not seen it come up with very good business ideas, if I'm honest. And even worse so when you talk about actual go-to-market strategies. So if you're talking about, should we do sales? Should we do SEO? Should we have PLG? Like those kind of things, like terrible, absolutely terrible, the answers it gives there. And the only thing that kind of works there is if you have something that's kind of working and you give it data and you let it iterate on that, but it needs the feedback loop to do anything useful. But without that, no, it's just very poor. Like in go to market, everything is about having an edge. Everything is about doing what others are not doing. And it's just not good at that by design. So. All right, so then what do you do? In those kind of cases, or how can you make sure that when you're starting to build something that you can leverage as much of AI as you can as is possible, but you don't fall into the traps of coming out with something meaningless or average that will not be remembered, that will not make a dent anywhere. And just like, because the worst thing is not that people don't like what you build. The worst thing is if they don't care or if they don't see it, right? So we want to at least be able to reach people and to be opinionated about certain things so that we can validate if these things are true or not. And it's okay to be wrong because we mostly are. But then we learn something along the way. And then the next time we get it closer to right. Okay, so first of all, be intentional. This is not an AI step. Animations got messed up a bit again, but like what you want to do is you want to take a step back and say, okay, I'm doing this thing. Why is this thing, why should I even do this? Why is this going to be a success? And this is kind of like the essence of what you're going to be building. And these definitions I gave here aren't even perfect, but you just need to at least have a certain point of view on this. Instead of just, oh, people need a scheduling solution. Like, no, why? They exist. And pretty much everything exists, right? So like, why does your thing need to exist? Why do you want to, why should you do this? And why should people start using it instead of all the other options that they have? And for Meetbot, the example there was like, well, we're charging per meeting. So everything else is charging per subscription, right? So you 16 or 20 bucks a month to be able to schedule. That works for salespeople that have a high volume. That doesn't work if I'm scheduling only a few meetings a month. Although I would like to have the benefit of advanced scheduling capabilities, but I'm not going to pay that money. So if I pay per meeting, then that would be better. That was the idea, simple as that. And then the idea was like that also fits better for automated agent use cases and so on. So that was the idea. And so that means that is then something I need to lean into. That means that I need to open myself up to all the use cases where this is actually valuable that are currently not possible. And we tested a few, and not all of them worked, but at least we're like, okay, if we pay per meeting, then we should sell organizational licenses where it's like just everyone gets it instead of just your sales team, but it costs roughly the same, but we onboard the whole organization. That turned out not to work that well, but then we got to the agent scheduling later where it seemed to be a much better fit. But you use your intention or like why you're going to win to shape the strategies you follow. Like it's kind of leads you the different paths you go. And it also disqualifies other paths because you're just not, because they're not a good fit for you. And that's okay, right? That's actually a good thing because you need focus. So data merge as a second example is like the idea at that point, and still today actually, is like there's a lot of company data out there, but most of it is just a copy of LinkedIn's data set. And that's not very good data because it's been entered by marketing and HR people who manage the LinkedIn page. And it's different. There's no comparability. Every person just interprets it differently. And so what is actually another data set that is very valuable there is the trade register data set. So which companies are registered legally in a company, in a country. And that data exists, but there's only a few providers and they're usually very expensive. And then on top of that, if you want the company hierarchies, that's even more rare and hard to get this data. And so we had access to this data set through a partner, and we made it available as a very easy self-serve API where you can just like go in and it has like some intelligence to help you use it. So that was the idea. Like people need to just be able to go in and start using this. That was the intention. And then with Scopy, this has evolved a little bit. It started as a workspace for OpenClaw, which was like the idea, like people need. There's a lot of people interested in OpenClaw that don't know how to set it up, and they need an easy way to start using it. It's like to your Hermes point before again. It evolved since then because OpenClaw actually became the bottleneck in the whole setup. So we got rid of OpenClaw, and now we're saying like people actually want like a specialized AI assistant, and it's still a lot of the same premise. Like that, people don't want to be passing back and forth tokens and stuff like that, like they have to do right now to set things up. And it's like a specialized assistant for a certain audience, in this case, solopreneurs that we're working on. This one is now in private beta still, so that's why we're still evolving that one. But again, the idea here needs to be clear of like, okay, there's a certain price assumption here, like we need to keep it below 30 a month, right? Like, well, that drives a lot of the work we're doing because we're looking at on device so that we can reduce the cost of LLMs and so on. So there's like, again, the premise there is like we need to, I should have probably added that we need to deliver this product at $30 a month or less. And with that, like a ton of things you would normally do are impossible when you do that, right? So
Yeah.
that
I also found it, sorry to interrupt you. I also found that we are at Extrovert, we are also trying to make Extrovert more agentic. And it is a difficult trade-off when you are trying to like kind of bring agentic workflows into your product. You start paying for tokens that people use, and you are indirectly competing with their like Claude or ChatGPT subscriptions, which is crazily subsidized. Yeah, what is the rate how they subsidize like this $200 monthly subscriptions? Is it like 20 times? So it's super hard to compete with that. So I can fully emphasize.
exactly. So yeah, that's like the first part. So you want to be intentional about why this business is going to succeed. That's kind of like that's your guide for everything that you're building. And then when you know that, then you know what you should build, right? And building has gotten very easy. Building is also addictive. So it feels really good to develop something to make it better. And it's really attractive sometimes to make a new interface or to change something, to add something. And all the words for that exist. Like scope creep is one of the words that has existed for a long time, where you just like started to add too many features. And like there's a reason why even when development took long, there was already a problem with too many features developed, right? So you want to actually do two things. You want to first be very deliberate about what it is that you need to build. But second, actually, you want to build it really fast. And I'll give you some examples of how long it took to build things. So Meatbot, again, as a reminder, Meatbot was built long before there were the models that we have today. So Meatbot, actually, I was already working a little bit on the side on Meatbot while I was still in my old role. And I finished it right after, soon, a few months after I left, so mid last year. And in the end, it took about 12 months, but again, this was not a full-time effort. But this is work where I used Cursor at the time, and you had to really handhold Cursor. You had to tell it everything. And the reason why I was building this product is because I had already built scheduling products in the past. So I knew kind of what needed to be built. And the goal that I had here was to learn how to build with AI. So I needed to know where I was going to run into issues so that I could quickly see if the model was taking care of this, yes or no. And at that point in time, it was not. It was not doing very well. And a lot of the things that still required, my own guidance there. And the learnings, though, that I took out of it that I wanted to share here are actually what are the reason that Meatbot's still around today as a company. The first one being cost efficiency. And I can't stress enough how important it is to be cost efficient. So there's all this talk about token maxing. And like I know people that are running like 8 Claude subscriptions maxed out next to each other to build it, and their product's not even live. And I just wonder what they're doing. I have no idea. And that's not how I run a business. Like I have one subscription and I run all my companies with it, and it's sufficient, right? Like at 5 times I'm at the limit, but the 20 times one, I have more than enough to work with. And so that's one thing to keep in mind. Like, and especially when you're building a product that has tokens in it, but I'll get to that in a second. The other part though is like the cost you have to just run your business, right? So you have tooling, right? So you might be having product analytics, you may have some support and so on. And each of these things, marketing automation, they're all important, but they also all cost money. And especially those that scale are problematic. So if you start having a few thousand users, if your bill also starts going up, that's a problem, because now you need to make sure you make a certain amount of money. Whereas if it's just your cloud bill, that's not too bad. That scales quite nicely usually. It's actually those tools that are expensive, and some of them they start at 250 a month. And if I'm just building something, that's a real pain, and you can quickly rake up 500 a month just to be alive as a company, just to be up and running. You have zero special things happening, zero revenue coming in, or customers, or nothing, but just the tooling. And so I spend a lot of time getting that low. And Meatbot runs at, I'll cover it on another slide, but it runs at $20 a month. It does not cost more than $20 a month, everything included. So that means you look at using open source. At the time was a big thing. Nowadays, actually, I built most of it myself. So in the latest tools that I've built, I actually, marketing automation is not something I pay for anymore. I build it. So I have my own email system that I built for any tool that I use, because it's just so simple to build actually. And then you can make your own custom flows. And if you need to change them, you just tell Claude that you need to change the flow, and it'll do it for you. So that's been a big help. But again, open source, or like, look, anything that cost me more than 20 a month, I'm like, really? Do I want that? Because if I do 5 of those, that's 100 a month. I don't like that, right? So I get to a point where even if I need to at some point, maybe I'm doing this next to my job, maybe I need to get a job at some point. It doesn't matter, because it costs nothing to run it. I have time. I'm not going to run out of runway. This thing, I just need to find the right moment, because in many companies, it's just about surviving long enough until the moment comes, right? And if you build something that plays into a future trend, sometimes you're a bit early, sometimes something in the market needs to change, be it different trends, be it a global pandemic or whatnot. You don't know what it's going to be. It's going to be the trigger that changes things and suddenly puts you in the right spot to succeed and capitalize on that moment. So you need to be around when that happens. And the way to do that is to not have high cost. Yeah,
Yeah,
other things
sorry
that are
to
important.
interrupt here. I totally agree. And I really like Adam Robinson's take on this as well. I have been to several of his webinars as well, and he always tells that money is going to be tight at some point. So even if it's, not even if you raise now a little bit, or even if you are profitable now, or you have some, other business funding your business that you are starting, you need to save and be as lean as possible, especially in times like today where things change like quickly. So I totally emphasize with this as well.
Yeah, so the other things that are important are things around like how to build the product. I'll touch on that a bit later. So I'll move on from Meatbot to data merge. So data merge, as you can see, and the one on the, you'll see that data merge took 4 months to build, and then Scopely took 4 weeks to build. So you see, when I said build fast before I got to this slide, like the point is, you need to not just be building, but also start putting deadlines for yourself. Like, okay, I need this to be done by X, and I cannot just be building all the time, because at some point I need to stop building. I need to start selling, or at least getting people to use it. With data merge, I spend a lot more time on the actual AI typical things around the product and around the website. So AI indexing, right, is like, this is often mixed up a bit in what people call AEO, or like, like agent search, or like those kind of like, can AI actually find you? I don't think it actually helps the AI find you anymore, because that's by now just as hard as SEO. But the first thing is that, can AI actually understand your website? And in many cases, the answer is no, because it's JS rendered and it just can't open. Like if your website requires JavaScript to run to show its content, which a lot of the frameworks like Vue or React and so on, they require that. If that's the case, then any kind of regular visit that one of these AI agents might run can't load the JavaScript, and it just can't read your page. And then on top of that, there's certain formats that the AI likes, like FAQs, and there's the LLMs.txt. There's tons of content on that online. You should have it. It's not going to get you found, but once you're found, it's going to help the AI understand what you do. So it's still very important, but for different reasons than what people think. And the easiest way to do this is to just take your AI agent, give it the URL of your website, and ask it what your company does. And then you can go further, ask it how it works, right? So how do I use this tool, and so on. And if you're not getting clear answers, then you need to improve this, because that's literally what other people are doing. And it works very well. And it's you can run through this in a few hours. You can have all of this optimized. You wouldn't even have to write much of it yourself, typically. So that's important, and without it, you're invisible for agents, but it doesn't actually get you traffic. But it is something that I thought worth highlighting. The other part is then, do I actually, if I have an API, for example, do people know how to use it, right? So if you want to use data merge and you put the website into your agent, and you say, okay, can you implement this for me? Like, does it do it correctly? And it works the same way, but what you can do for that is you create some of these skill files, skills by now as well, and you put those in your LLMs.txt. So the LLMs.txt is a linked file that sends people to different skill files, and that covers the different use cases. If you want to do this, here's your skill file. Here's your skill file, and that then again just makes it very easy for people to, when they find you, to work with your solution. Then the last one there worth mentioning is MCP optimization. I think people don't always understand how MCPs work. It's not super complicated, but one of the things that we really ran into is that data merge is asynchronous. So it means you ask it something, and sometimes it takes a minute or two to come back with an answer, because it needs to check a lot of things in the background. So it will give you an ID, and you can like check, or it will call your system when it's done. That's nice, but that's not how an agent works. Right? An agent is waiting for an answer right away. And so there were some optimizations we had to do there to make sure that we can actually serve that type of workflow, because else you're basically disqualified 90% of the time, unless the thing has a capability to receive webhooks, which is rare. So these kind of things matter, right? So it means you have to think through how the new agentic workflows work, and if that can actually if you can actually serve that. But if you do it well, then from the moment that people find you, everyone's using an agent now, then they can get up and running with you in minutes, and that's then really nice. We applied all the same things to Meetbot, and it was really much easier after that. Okay, good. So that was data merge. Took 4 months, and this was still before December last year. I told you I would say something about that when I started. So from December, the models got really good. I would say they got really a lot better, where you wouldn't have to handhold them as much anymore. That's when it was Claude at first that came out with models that were really powerful, and where you could just tell it something and it would start building it for you, and it would actually check things and would. And so now, fast forward another half year, the models we have right now could build what I built there, like in a heartbeat. There's a lot of specifics in there that they wouldn't get right because they're product decisions, and I would have to walk them through that. But a lot of the stuff that I spent time on last year wouldn't be the case anymore right now, and stuff that I spend time on today probably won't be the case anymore next year. But the fact that I went through it helps me understand how I can work more effectively with it nonetheless. Now with Scopy, I became much more hands-off, because I started to think like, okay, I need to build faster, right? I can't be building for 4 months and then go out. Like, if I can build something in 1 month, then I have to do a lot less validation before I can take bigger bets, if you will, because I can test them really fast. What normally, like what I built in 4 weeks there, that normally would take 1.5 years, right? So that's really great that I can test it within 4 weeks. So if I can do that fast and build an actual good product, not just an MVP that doesn't work well, then I have something that's a competitive advantage, if you call it that. And so I really practiced on like, okay, what do I don't need control of? Like, can it just create me a UI? Okay, probably use these colors, but just like create something. I don't care where the button is as long as it's intuitive for people. And so I started to let go of some of my personal preferences for the sake of getting it done quicker, but at the same time trying to make sure it doesn't look like every other app out there, right? Because that's of course the risk that you would have. So it's about being clear which things matter and which things don't. There's a podcast I listen to where they say, like, does it make your beer taste better? Right? If it doesn't make your beer taste better, then just like that, it actually there applies to like, then it's like build or buy decisions. Like, do you buy it from a supplier? Do you build it? I think the same applies to like, do you have AI build it for you, or do you tell AI how to build it? And if it doesn't make a difference for your success of your product, this is whatever, just default it. Like it'll come up with a good answer. And so here we're looking at much more interesting things, like, can I have an agent onboard the user? Can I provide support through the agent of the customer instead of requiring our own chatbot? So I'm not going to get too technical here, so I'll skip over these because I spend a bit more time on the other topics already. But this is where it becomes really interesting, I think. The biggest challenge remains, because Scopy is a product that uses AI for the user. The big challenge there is token costs, and yeah, competing with the subsidized rates that are out there. But again, because we're working through this now, and like once you start digging in there together with your AI agent, because it can guide you with that, you start learning all the tricks of how you can cut down the context of the prompts you have, the model size that you need, and all those kind of things. And that's just an advantage for later, because once token costs are going to go up, which they will eventually, if you're then in a place that you can be super cost effective, then that's it. So don't just throw tokens at everything when you're developing something for your user. When you develop, it's fine, but when you put it in a product, that's like going to make the product inevitably expensive. So yeah, building that fast is kind of like, I would encourage you to try and be fast, build a good product, but don't over iterate on something. Like put deadlines on the different things you work on and keep moving forward. Say like, I want to have it ready by then. What does that mean? Thinking backwards, what do I need to have ready by the week before, and work against that deadline. And then the hardest thing is going to be to iterate on growth. Because while building got much easier, growing got much, much harder through a number of reasons, AI being a big driver behind it, but bigger trends that were already playing out over the years with automated email campaigns, with, Clay contributed to that as well. It's a good tool, but it gave capabilities that were only used by the best teams came in the hands of everyone, which is by itself a good thing. But since everyone's still using the same data, it just meant that everyone was starting to get the same emails at the same time. So it's very noisy out there. It's hard to cut through that noise. It's hard to position yourself. So when you start building something, it is worth thinking first about how you're going to reach your customer. Ideally, you already have access to your customer. If you don't, it's going to be very hard. Full stop. Doesn't matter if it's consumers or businesses. If you don't have a good way to get to your customers already, it's going to be hard. It's not impossible, but just be prepared that it's tough. And my views on this have evolved quite a bit, even though I spent most of these 18 years on developing software to help companies grow. The world has changed a lot. And I'm going to pull 3 of them up right away, actually. I wanted to share with you also to show you why cost matters. I put in the revenue numbers for this year. Scopy is per month because it's still rather new, but also the operational costs to show you like, when is it worth to do this? And I'll walk through what I tried in terms of growth for each of them, so you can understand like how I look at it now. And partly also it'll explain why I do so many things on the offline event stuff as well. So if we look at Meetbot, the initial idea was to actually sell this to companies that would want to integrate into their product a scheduling solution. However, while we got this to market, the market changed under our feet. And now, as I told you, you can actually create a scheduling solution with AI quite easily. So a lot of these companies that we identified as good fit, we're now building it themselves and working through that with the AI, because it takes a bit of time to get it right, but you can definitely get it right with AI. So we had to disqualify that, unfortunately. And then we're like, okay, well, it's a good self-serve product. It's very stable. It works well. So what about, like being found through AI or being found through SEO? And I'll cover this together with data merge as well, these two channels. If you're not already being mentioned on Reddit, YouTube, or other social places that these search engines and agent companies are using to qualify your company, then you can write all the pages you want, but you're not going to show up. It's just simple as that. There are so many other companies that are probably ranking better, and if they're just being mentioned here and there a little bit, they will always win. And this is the part that's hard to fake, right? To get people to talk about you. It kind of means that everyone who has customers already is at an advantage, right? Because they can get people to talk about them. If you're new, you cannot. But I've tried a lot of things over the past year, and I've found it hard to get SEO off the ground as a starting point. Once you start having something going, I think it's a great accelerator. But as the very first starting point at 0 to 1, I personally don't think it's the place to aim for. So for Meetbot, revenue is still 0, even though we have users. It has to do a little bit with the type of product as well. But because it costs $20 a month, it's basically a product we're still trying new things every month, and I'm actually having it managed by Claude at this point, kind of see what it's like to have an AI run a company. And Claude comes up with new strategies and tries out things, so we'll see when something works or not. But the only reason I can do that is because I'm not paying 500 or 1,000 a month to run it. So if you look at data merge, then that's already quite different, because data merge costs 600 a month to run, because it's like a 250 gigabyte data file that it uses, and it needs to navigate that. And so it's just infrastructure cost. There's no way around it. The product doesn't exist without it. So for data merge, we did luckily manage to make some revenue, but not through the ways that we thought it would. So there was a whole social strategy that we prepared, and that was meant to be sort of like a B2C strategy for a B2B product. But that completely did not play out as it was intended, unfortunately. It turned out to be really hard to get attention, as always, but it just we didn't see success. So I had to disqualify that strategy. For AEO and SEO, I already told you how that went. And then we found for sales that we are seeing traction there. But that was actually a problem, because we sold a few deals through sales, but the product was built in a PLG way, because the idea, coming back to the intentional part in the beginning, was that it needs to be an easily accessible API that anyone can start using. And it turns out that premise is actually a mismatch with with the type of customers that we have, because they're often the more advanced, more technical ones, and people who are just starting to build their own agent that wants to do some outreach, for example. They have no idea what this means with trade register data. They don't understand the value, and therefore they're not interested, basically. So we found a mismatch between the go-to-market model and the eventual audience that we went for. But what was a big learning there is that sales works, even though we said we want to do this without people, but like these companies, but it does seem like we have to somehow get in front of people. So with Scopy, we lean into that a bit more.
Sorry to interrupt you here. With data merge, we have a question from Luke. Can you please share a bit more how you sourced the sales calls? Like, was it inbound or was it some outbound motion, like LinkedIn, cold email? What was it?
Most of the people I met at events actually,
Oh, okay. It
and
was
this is
your own
now,
distribution channel.
yeah, it's got, well, also events that I visited, right? So and this is going to come full circle now actually, because that's also what was the big learning throughout this year is that the best way to sell is in person, in my view. Actually. And there's a number of forms of in person, but especially in the beginning, when every customer is a big win, regardless actually of how much your contract value is. In the beginning, you just need people to start using your product and keep using your product. And that's it. And if
Yeah.
they do that, then probably you have something. If you can't do that, then probably you don't have. And so the with Scopy, what we started to do long before the product was actually launched, started to workshops around the problem that we were solving. And was workshops like how to get your social media running in OpenClaw, because that was first an OpenClaw focused product, right? And we just got people together and we walked them through how they could actually use the thing that we built to have weekly workflows around that. And that worked really well. And everyone like post 100% conversion on those. And then we said, okay, we're going to go towards webinars, and we got interest there as well. And so this in whichever way to actually interact with people directly, that seems to be the thing that works right now. And also, if I look at the different companies I work on, I have the offline companies, the retreats, the space. Demand for that is very strong. Like the retreats, we sell them out within weeks after announcement. And so that's really, I think that's something not to ignore. Like we all like to press a button, see customers come in. But in the early days, when you're trying to get it right, there's nothing more valuable than talking directly with your customer and just organizing a workshop or a one-on-one training or whatever, and seeing that they actually, how they start using your product, what their actual problem is, and so on. So that's now we went actually all the way from saying it needs to be PLG, it needs to be self-serve, to like, no, actually we want to help people on board to make sure that we get everything right. And then from there on, once the engine starts running, yes, then we'll go back and we want all those other things, but they don't become the first driver of growth. I'll try to wrap up because I know we're getting at time. So this ties into what I just said. So you want to really make sure that people use your product. The adoption rates, there's like these surveys where they measure general adoption of products that are being launched to the market or features that are being launched. And originally that was at 20%, and it's come down to 6% over the past 1 or 2 years, I believe. What that means is that everyone's building more, but nobody's using it, right? So what you want is that people use what you build. And therefore forget about MVPs, because an MVP is not something, it's not a good product. An MVP is like a minimum, like kind of hack almost to the solution that I want. Like it's so easy to build a good product with the technology that exists now, that just be very specific about what problem you're solving, solve it, but solve it well. Make sure that it's a good experience. Over deliver a bit on the experience for that specific thing, not by adding more features, but by making that a really great experience. That's what I would encourage you to do. And that's how you'll learn if you're right or wrong. That's actually important because that's how you get better. You don't get better from building more. You get better from learning what you missed or learning that you're on the right track. So here's a summary, the things I just mentioned already. So be intentional, make sure you're as efficient as possible so that you can keep running for how long you want to. Build something great, and then make sure that you actually talk directly with the people who you want that use it. And really try to get people to pay for it. Like, go full circle. Don't just go from one thing building. It's like, oh, now I'm going to build the other thing. It's good to get faster at building. That's a good exercise if that's your goal. But then if you're building the right thing, you'll only know it once you put it in front of people. And if you ask them to pay something. That's me. Thank you.
Thanks, Vincent. Super interesting. And I will have my part right now I will share my view about GTM and what you can do in this, to try to face the struggle. But I fully agree with most of the takes, and I fully agree that distribution is super duper hard. And actually, we didn't exchange the slides before the call, but you will see now that all over our slides. Some of the slides are very similar. So yeah, thanks a lot for sharing the your route. And I'll share my screen now if yeah if it's so. And please do ask questions as well, because we will have the Q&A in the end, and we can answer them right now as well. And if you can help me in the chat, that would be awesome. So yeah, guys, if you can see my screen, this is actually what Vincent was talking about. This is a tweet from like several months ago. Like, get this right, everyone of us will have their own app, but we will all have 0 users, right? So this feels like this is what is happening. And I have my own view how you can overcome this with the GTM. And I will share some of the things that I believe in and what we are building in Extrovert as well. So already covered this. Building is addictive. It's the dopamine loop. When you build stuff, it's it's interesting, it's rewarding, and it's easy to build and not just go sell the thing. And very often, like me, myself included, and the founders I talk with, are trying to build this GTM engineered workflow, like a AI native signal based multi-channel, whatever, blah, 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 which is all the good things. I totally, believe that GTM motions should be complex to work, but it is very, especially if you are a solo business or especially if you are a small business, there is a lot of psychology involved. And it's very important, in my view, to be careful not to lie to yourself, that you're not detaching yourself from talking to customers, from going, meeting people online or offline and just talking to them and building actual relationships with them, instead of just building a system that is supposed to do the outreach, whether it's cold email, cold LinkedIn, inbound, lead, outbound signals, whatever. So the end goal, especially at early stage, when you are trying to find the product market fit, is to actually talk to people. And meanwhile, what is happening right now, and what makes the things worse, is that it is so crazy saturated, and it is so much noise out there, and people are trying the whole lots of stuff. I saw this tweet like a couple of days ago. Apparently, in outreach, people generate the AI generated pictures of their prospects, like with ridiculous, outfits to just grab their attention. And this is how the outreach looks like currently. So it's insane competition, it's insane noise, whether it's on LinkedIn, cold email, and it's difficult to stand out. But I think the boring stuff, it does work. So there are only 3 things, in my view, which works in your outbound. And these are the triage. So be a familiar face when you reach out with a relevant offer at the right time, and stay visible long enough until they care. So only 3 pillars uh, work pretty well. They are boring, yes, they have been here forever, but if they're actually executed correctly, they do work. We have the data. I will show some data a little bit later on that. So, and I believe this is the easiest, this is the lowest hanging fruit. We had a webinar with David Arnault a while ago. It's a really interesting watch. Give it a watch. It was a week or 2 weeks ago. And he's building GTM systems for companies. And his take was that the lowest hanging fruit to get your first customers is actually LinkedIn outreach, which I agree with. And I think it can work pretty well. So to emphasize on the first point of being a familiar face when you reach out, we have the data on that, and we scanned about maybe almost 1 million connection requests sent throughout Extrovert, throughout our platform. And the data shows that it commenting on your prospect's posts a couple of times before you send that connection request and putting some content out there actually doubles your chances to your request being accepted, to your DM being answered. This is 27 versus 41 throughout all the users that we have. You don't need much. You don't need more than 2, actually. The 2 is the sweet spot. So it's super easy. Just build some familiarity before you reaching out to people. And the other thing is that you want to convert this familiarity as quick as possible into your outreach, because again, it's saturated. People are very busy. People forget. If you send, this is the actual data from our platform. If you send that connect request the same day as your last comment, and as the reply came to your last comment, it is 44% acceptance rate versus 33. So you want to build familiarity, but you also want to act quite quickly. And the second part of the idea is to stay there long enough until they care. And I want to ask you to ask yourselves, like, what is the last software product or like digital product that you bought, and just think how long it took you to buy it. Like, what was the buying cycle? What was the decision cycle? And please share it in the chat if you can. But for me, when I do buy stuff, it's usually like 6 months and more. And when I ask people how long their sequence is, it's usually like 2 weeks. So and it doesn't add up, right? So it doesn't make any sense why we assume that we can just fit this buying window, and our solution would be relevant to people that we are reaching out in this very narrow window, and they will be able to pay attention to what we are offering them. And usually there are 2 reasons. When I talk to people, I talk to a lot of users that do outreach. It's early stage companies, solo founders, and also quite developed bigger companies, sales teams. And usually there are two reasons why the sequences stay short. And the first reason is efficiency. You want to make your outreach efficient. You want to chew through your leads. You want to, go through your, outreach workflow fast enough to just be effective, right? To get this reply rate, demo book rate, whatever. And also, you don't want to annoy people. Obviously, if you follow up 10 times within 2 weeks, it's going to get you blocked. It will not help you to, close the deal. So it is interesting that both of those things can be solved. And the first thing, the efficiency thing, is quite easily solved with AI. So before that, the short sequence meant that you are efficient because you just don't spend a lot of time on any specific prospect. You just do the outreach. You either it works or it doesn't, and you move on. Now with specific tools, it can be our tool, Extrovert, it can be any other tool, it can be a system that you build in-house. You can actually keep the effort per prospect very low, and you keep the interaction window as long as possible. And this can be done simultaneously. Obviously, one caveat that I want to mention here, it is not for PLG products, or it is not for PLG stage, if you will. So it works better if it is a sales motion. and you can transition to PLG later, or it's just the product that you sell to a mid-market or enterprise, and it is sales-led motion in the first place. But if it's a sales motion and your interaction window is long, and you can build a system to make it effective, to spend a low effort per prospect, this is the best thing that can be done in outbound, in my view. And the other thing, what people talk about is not being annoying, right? So how do I follow up long enough? How do I stay on the radar long enough without, just sending the follow-ups, which are like pumping this up? Do you have any thoughts on my last message and whatever? So our answer to this is you can share two things. You can share on the long time frame. So if it's not the outreach follow-up where you do like the first message, then the second message in 7 days. If you do it on the long time frame, like 6 months, and you send out something every month, so you can only share two things: something changed for you, or something changed for your prospect. So what can change for you? It can be a new customer result, a new product update, workshop, any kind of free value that you can give them, anything that changed, anything that is not just, bumping this up. And to coming back to my previous take, you need a system to make it low effort for you. You need a system to follow up consistently and follow up personally for each prospect, because for each prospect, this thing will be different, obviously, because they have different situations. You offer different things to them before that. So you need the adaptive AI first system to be able to do that. The second thing, which I think is very underrated, is something changed for them. So they launched a product, they hired someone, they changed the role, they launched on Product Hunt, they went to a conference, whatever. You can listen to the signals. We do offer this, so you can set it up with Extrovert. You can set up social listening to these signals, and you can use these signals as a conversation restarter signal. Might sound complicated, but actually it's not. What it means is that it gives you the reason to follow up, just the normal human message that will get you a conversation. It's not about intent. It's not about a signal that tells you anything about their, situation that is changing how they can buy your product. It is just telling you something that changed on their side that you can reference. Uh, Super simple. They participated in the event, and you just say, "Oh, I noticed you have been in that event. How did it go for you? Did you get any leads?" You send a DM on LinkedIn. More often than not, you will get a reply, because it's just a human conversation. You're asking about what's happening to them, especially if you commented a couple of times on their posts. It will do get you a reply. And this reply won't be about what you're selling, but the algorithm works in a way that your comments, DMs, and your posts actually amplify each other very well. And this is a hack that I learned from one of our users. When she sends DMs on LinkedIn, she doesn't even care about the DMs being about what she sells. She only care about receiving any kind of reply, just any reply. And what works in her case is jokes. So she's just cracking jokes from time to time. And why you need this? Because I'm sure you noticed when you DM people on LinkedIn, you will see their stuff in your feed. You will see their posts in your feed. It's a very strong signal to the algorithm. If you DM someone, if you have a conversation, or if you have a conversation in the comments. algorithm will push their posts to your feed. And it works vice versa as well. If your prospect reply to you, they will see your posts, and your posts will do the selling. You don't need to pitch. You just need to get this reply, and you just need to get this reply constantly, as long for for the longer period. And it works like, I don't know, like maybe it has more similarity to marketing other than sales, because you just expose your prospect to your content. You are making sure that they see your content, whatever algorithm, if the algorithm will want to show your content or not. You are forcing the algorithm to show your content to your prospect. One of the biggest pushbacks that I have when I pitch it to users, to people that I talk to sales teams, is that some people don't post on LinkedIn. How do I interact with their content? They are lurkers. They just read, they consume, but they don't post. Uh, and actually, we have the data on this, and we have the feature as well in the product, which is called indirect engagement. The idea is super simple. You interact with content that they consume. It can be the influencers that they follow. It can be their work buddies. It can be their, friends, whatever. Anyone who do post content, who they follow probably, and who they interact frequently. If you comment on these posts, they will see your comments. Especially if you're connected to them, the algorithm works in that way that they will see your comment in the feed unfolded. So the data is pretty close. It's 27 versus 41 connection acceptance rates if you do this thing before you reach out to them. And yeah, I guess that's the whole thing that I wanted to say. If I would, if it is one thing that I would like you to get from my presentation, is that um, LinkedIn outreach still works. It works better than any other ways of outreach that I know. Much better than cold email. And if you can build a system, AI first system in your company that makes your interaction window with your prospects as long as possible, and effort per prospect to nurture them as low as possible, you win. So we are trying to build it internally with our product, with Extrovert. You can try it if you haven't. Use the code that I share here, AI native, to get 50% of your first month. And yeah, tell me what you think. So this is me. This is what I wanted to share with you guys. And maybe anyone has some questions. Yeah. So we don't have questions. We are on time. I hope this was useful. We'll share the recording. We'll share the slides. Please do follow Vincent on LinkedIn. Drop him a message. Follow me on X. And good luck with all your ideas, with everything that you're building. Please do share your takes and your feedback on the webinar. We are doing those things weekly, so please do share any topic that you're interested in that we need to cover the next time. And yeah, have a great weekend ahead, and thanks a lot for taking the time. Thanks, Vincent. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.